Hello everyone, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to lecture number 4. The topic is VBA for everyone. In the last lecture, what we covered was we talked about Visual Basic Editor. We tried to understand the code structure. We edited the code and we stepwise ran our macro. So let's recap. Let me start Microsoft Excel. Come on. Alright, this is our Excel screen, and what we talked about was that if we press Alt F1 key, F11 key, our Visual Basic editor will open up. So let me drag this window here. So here, this is our editor. Let's fix it on the right side and Excel on the left side. In the Visual Basic editor, we talked about from the view menu we can go and open Project Explorer. From Project Explorer, in Project Explorer we will find list of open workbooks, and if we expand our workbooks we will find Microsoft Excel objects. In the objects we will have all the sheets followed by this workbook, and then after that there will be modules. Macros are present in modules. If we don't have a module, we just right click and from insert we can have a new module, and this can be done from insert menu. We can have a new module. Modules are like pockets. In every pocket we can have multiple macros. The name of pocket, module 1, module 2, can be changed from properties window. Instead of module 2 we can have any name what we want to assign. So this was about properties window, and when we double click on any module, that double click will show its contents. It will open that pocket and we'll have contents shown in the code view. Okay, in this code we talked about that every macro starts with the word sub and then it ends with end sub. After the word sub we will have the macro name with followed by bracket start and bracket close. Sub, macro name, bracket start, bracket close, and end sub is the minimum syntax required for a macro. Anything that has a inverted comma on its left side will mean a comment. That is a memo for the user, for the programmer. And in the black font we will have our codes. Sub and end sub is dark blue. The commands will be in green font and our commands will be in black color. Commands will be executed one by one. They are very simple. If you read them you can understand what's happening. In English grammar we have is, was, to, for, then. In VBA grammar we have full stop, bracket start, inverted commas, is equal sign. So this grammar or the syntax is important to follow. We can have these commands by pressing the record button, doing certain stuff. For example, if I want to know the syntax of sort command, I will turn on recording, I will do the sorting, I will stop recording, and then I will go and look at the syntax of sort command. So this was covered in the last lecture. So in today's lecture, I'm going to talk about some more sample macros. We will talk about code break. I will talk about macro security, and if time allows us, then we will talk about reserve words and variables and how to read from a value from a cell and how to write value from us to a cell, and what does the equal sign do in these commands. So let's first complete the activity we from the last lecture, and let's have our Excel screen in front of us. Excel, and let's get the Visual Basic too. Here comes the Visual Basic. Let's change the workbook. Okay, so here is our, no, where is that activity file? So so this is the file. If I zoom a bit, here we go. So the requirement was that edit macro to copy range A1 to B7 to cell C2. So we had the macro with us, and that was this one. This was given in the file, and the requirement was to edit this macro, not record this macro, so that this macro will copy range A1 to B7 to cell C2. So let's try and do it. What this macro is actually doing right now, this is the sub and sub macro 1. These are the comments, so we can ignore them. So this is what is happening. Selection.copy range d1.select activesheet.paste application.cut copy mode is equal to false. So let's run it stepwise and see what this does to our sheet, and then we'll start editing it. Let me try to show you in a zoomed window what this does to the screen. So let's press our famous F8 key, and we have the highlighted name of the macro, then selection.copy, control C. Okay, what is happening in Excel? My cursor was in cell B3, and that B3 is being copied, but I wanted to copy A1 to B7. Okay, let's move forward. Range d1.select activesheet.paste application.cut copy mode is equal to false. What does this one do? Okay, if you notice, the copy mode is off now, and sub. So what this macro is doing is selecting whatever, wherever the cursor is, and pasting it to D1. Let's try it and run on this range. A1 to B3. I have selected that, and now I'm going to run this. Run this quickly. Macro 1. Yes. Run macro 1. Okay. I have this now, this range copied over here. So what this macro is doing, it's starting from control C. Whatever is selected is being copied to range D1. So we need to select proper range before we press control C, before we start copying. So how to do it? So let's try to do it. Control C, Control V, and range is A1 to B7 dot select. Okay. Oh, I am getting a compile error. Expected end of statement. As soon as I try to move my cursor from this line, oh, what I have done is I accidentally or not, I deleted the dot. So dot select. I have to take care of the grammar, take care of the syntax of VBA. So I am ready to, so let's run this macro, and you can't see this, so let me run from here. Macro, macro 1, run, boom. So range A1 to B7 is copied to D1, but the requirement was to copy to cell C2. So all we need to do is edit this D1 and type C2, and let's run it again, and let's see what has been done. If you will notice, now we have this data within the range C2 to D8. So this is done. This was the requirement, that our macro was missing this first code, first line of code. We had to type this and change the target cell. So it was very simple. Just we do our editing in Microsoft Word. We can do editing in VBA editor. You should have noticed I selected this command, copied it and pasted at the top of the selection.copy. All you need to remember that VBA executes commands one by one. So range A1 first, then copy, then go to the target cell, then control V. So we had to, all we had to do is type range A1 to B7 dot select. Alright, let's have a look at some other macros. So in this workbook I have macro 1, 2, 3, 4. If I run macro 1, my data is copied in another range. So if I delete this, let's try the macro number 2. In what does this do? Macro number 2, nothing has changed, I think. I don't see any change. Okay. Macro 3, run, and what is done, I don't know what is, there's no change. And then macro 4, if I run macro 4, okay, and macro 4 has done some major changes. It has done some coloring, some formatting, and let's go and see what these 4 macros do. So this is our VBA window. These are our macros. So this is macro 1. Macro 1 does range A1 to C6 select, copy paste. It was simple copy paste. Macro 2, okay, what do this, let me drag and create some space. Okay, so range A1 to C6 select, then the keyword is sort. So macro 2 is doing some sorting, and from here to here, this is not single line command. This whole range represents sorting. And if you look at this line number 2 of sort, this says dot sort fields dot add to. Add to is the syntax for Microsoft Excel 2016. If you are recording your macro in Excel 2007, this will be sort fields dot add. So as I mentioned earlier, there at times there is a bit of small difference in the code. So if I try to run this macro on Excel 2007, this will generate an error. But if I run this macro on 2019, though I have recorded in 16, it will run without any error. So these are small changes that are being made in the syntax over the period. So I don't have to understand what each word in these commands do. I will start recording, stop recording. That's it. I will get my command. All I need to do is I can edit it through the range. I can edit the sort order. That's it. So I will not go into details, but I should know how to customize this command. Okay, let's move forward. After sorting, it is selecting range, copying it and pasting it, and macro 3 is doing just nothing. It's just selecting range A1C4. And what is happening in macro 4? Macro 4 is sorting. Then we have some interior dot pattern dot color index, and then there is some color. If we change the color number, the result of the macro will change. Then there is another formatting command. This is the formatting command. You can see it now. With change of this value, tint and shade, I can change background color of my cell. Then this is the command for changing the borders, and then we have borders, again borders. So this is a long macro. All this macro is doing is making some changes, format changes. So let's run it again. Delete these lines. Let me delete the columns. Okay, we have fresh columns now. So let's run this macro through F8, one line at a time. Okay, I think I need to change the views. Let's go back to a bigger view. Here we go, here we go. Okay, let's press F8 anywhere within the macro. So macro 4, range select, sort, sorting is complete. Okay, you can't see the code. I think this will be better now. uh, Interior is being changed, interior is being changed, and interior is again being changed, and the borders are being added, and then copy pasted. Okay, so you see I did the same thing with the F8 key. I was just pressing F8 key very quickly, and you can see the changes. What if I don't want to do one line at a time, and I don't want to run the macro in one go? What I want is that macro should run very quickly to a certain point, to a certain line in the macro, and then wait for me, and from that I can run my macro step by step, one command at a time. So this can be done. This is known as break mode. Let's first clear out our workbook from the changes and let's format it very simply. Format painter. Let me, this is okay, the simple formatting now. Let's, if you can see, let me zoom it for you. This is my Visual Basic code. So let's put a stop over here. What all I need to do is within the line press F9 key. At any line where I want to add a break, I have to press F9 key. When I press F9 key, the row will be highlighted and I can see a shape. It is it is not round, it is oval, or not proper oval even. Okay, let's see, it's sort of a circle. You can see that this circle on the left side of your code. So if I press F9, this is added. This is the breakpoint. Whenever I run the macro will run very quickly till this line, and at this line it will stop and wait for me to send the command to execute it again. So if I press F5, or I can run this from here. Let me show you the Excel screen too. Let's run it now. So if you will notice, here it is. The macro has ran very quickly up to this line and then it has stopped. It is waiting for me to run it again. If I press continue, the rest of the macro ran very quickly. But what if I didn't press F5? Can I press F8? Let's try it. Let's delete this once more, copy paste our formatting back. We are now back to simple format. Let's run this again very quickly to our breakpoint, and then from here let's press F8 key. F8, F8, F8. Now you should have noticed the Excel has started moving now line by line. So this breakpoint with the F9 key provides you a very strong debugging tool that it will run quickly to a certain level then stop for you. But can we add more than one breakpoints? Let's try and see. So what if I click on left side of this range in the column where this circle was appearing. Here, if I click here, I'm not pressing F9, so I have clicked on left side of the cell in this column in the gray shaded area, and I have added a breakpoint. So it can be done with F9 key, it can be done with left click, mouse click, and we can have multiple breakpoints. So this is an important helpful tip if you are into debugging. And everyone has to debug the code. Therefore, this is a very good useful tool built in our VBA editor. Alright, so if I want to run the macro now at this stage when my Excel is already running a macro, and I can tell you this because I have a yellow highlighted row. Then if I go into Excel and click on macros and try to run a macro, Visual Basic has generated an error, and this error says cannot execute code in break mode. What Excel is trying to tell us that there is an macro already running, so I cannot execute another macro. So what I need to do is I need to stop execution of the first macro. I know it is not complete, it is somewhere in the middle of the macro, but I can stop that. So how that can be done? Just close this window and I can have VBA window over here. If you notice this reset button, if I press this reset button, this execution mode will stop. Click, and here we go. Now we are ready to run our another macro. So macros, run macro 1, boom, done. So what we talked about the breakpoint F9, multiple breakpoints. This can be done with left click, and we talked about we cannot run a macro while one macro is running in the debug mode. So let's close this window and have a look at today's agenda again. Where is that agenda? It goes. So we talked about code break. We looked at some more sample recorded macros. Now let's talk about macro security. This is very important conceptual matter that you should understand. If you recall, uh, till Office 2003, I believe, if I recall it correctly, we used to have only one type of Excel file, and that was XLS. Now we have multiple types. Let's have a look at those files. If I say file, save as, what option I'm going to get? And somehow my system is too slow today. So now I'm having this Excel workbook, XLSX, and then I have Excel macro enabled workbook, XLSM. Initially we used to have till 2003 Excel 97 and till 2003 workbook.xlx. So Excel S, Excel X, and XLSM. Till 2003, the XLS file used to have both our worksheets and macros. From 2003 onward, Microsoft made a very reasonable change that in XLSX file we are not going to have the macros, and in XLSM file macros can be stored. So XLS was split into two parts. Why that was done? That was done to identify and specifically tell the users that XLSM has the macros. Be careful. Be careful. XLSM has the macros. Try to understand. Try to understand this matter. That we Microsoft are telling you take care, take a prudent decision whether or not this file should be opened. Why? Because it has got some code, and code can contain something which can damage your data. What I am talking about? I am talking about a virus. Yes, our macros can contain viruses. Yes, we can develop viruses in this VBA code that can damage data. I will talk about how to create this virus, or let me put it in a more positive way, what to look for in a code that it doesn't contain a virus at later stage of these lectures. But right now you should understand that a code can damage your data. That's why Microsoft is telling you be careful, be careful. Whenever you receive a file, macro enabled file, through email, or uh, you download it from the internet, Excel tells you, do you want to enable content? There is a warning. And if you look at the menus, let me zoom it a bit. In the developer menu, you can see this yellow triangle. This is macro security. If I click on it, nothing will happen. Where is that? Why it's not? Oh, here it is. So I go to macro settings menu. What options I have? Disable all macros without notification. Don't ask, just disable them. Disable all macros with notification. All macros will be disabled, but Excel will give me an option. Do you want to run this file? You want to open this file? Do you want to run the macro content? And I have a choice that I'll say yes or no. Third one, disable all macros except digitally signed macros. So Excel will disable all macros, but those macros which are digitally signed, which means that they're authentic, the file will run without any problems. And the last one, enable all macros, and now Microsoft is telling us not recommended. Potentially dangerous code can run. Excel will not ask us whether it should run the macro or not. It will run the macro. How? We cannot run the macro until unless we go into the menu and we click on the macro button icon and then we select the run, or until unless I press the shortcut key. But Excel is telling us potentially dangerous code can run. Maybe Excel is saying if I don't look at the macro before pressing the shortcut key or running the macro, it can damage my files. Yes, that is true. But later on in these lectures, we will see that macros can run without clicking on the run command, or without pressing the shortcut key. So that's why Excel is very critical about it. So most of the time what I do is I keep my settings on disable all macros with notification, so that I choose to enable whenever I want to run these macros. Then we have developer macro settings, trust access to VBA project object model. This setting I will talk about later. This is very important. But right now, you need to understand that disable all macros with notification is a good setting. And let's close this. Macros can contain viruses. You can develop viruses. That's not a big deal. That is not a big deal. We are going to talk about it. I'm going to tell you what commands can harm your computer, what is the basic concept of viruses if you don't have that. So keep an eye and avoid running macros or enabling macros. This should be a thought, full thought decision that I want to run a macro in this file. If you if you have any doubts about the source of the file or about the code, don't enable the macro. Open the file, go to your VBA editor, double click on the modules and see what is present in the code, and then decide whether or not you are going to enable macros. This is a, this I am again stressing, this is a very critical decision. That's why Microsoft divided its file into XLSX and XLSM, so the user can identify that XLSM can have the code, XLSX cannot has the code. You can open it without any doubts. If you have has XLSM, then Excel will ask you if you have in the setting that disable all macros but notify me. So Excel will notify you whether or not to run the macros. Once you decide to run the macros, you can run without any problems. But if you are have has any doubts, go and look into the module what the code is all about. And because it is Visual Basic, you can read the code and you can understand what is it is trying to do. I think I will stop this lecture till here. In the next lecture, I will talk about reservoirs and variables and how to read and write from cells. Um, in this lecture, um, we have covered some editing part, and the most important thing is the macro security. I am stressing again, don't take it light. It can contain viruses. So till next time, thank you everyone.